Hello. So I'm Scarlett Williams and I've developed Target to Zero, and I've got another clinician here that I trained in Target to Zero, Stephanie, and she's going to introduce herself and then talk a little bit about her experience using Target to Zero with clients. Hello,
Hi, Scarlett. Thanks for having me.
Stephanie. You're welcome. Will you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. So I'm Stephanie Knight. I'm in Sarasota, Florida, and I've been a mental health counselor for about the past 5.5 years.
And then you trained in EMDR before you trained in Target to Zero. Tell me about when you trained in EMDR, what you saw with EMDR, and then training in Target to Zero and the differences you're seeing with Target to Zero.
Sure. My experience with EMDR was twofold, professionally and personally. Right about the same time in life, I decided to go ahead and get trained in EMDR. As you hear, it's the gold standard. And so I thought, this is great. This is going to revolutionize my practice. So, of course, during EMDR training, you've got to do some work yourself.
Yep.
And immediately I found that my brain shut down. I just dissociated. And um, I was currently in a season of insomnia, and it actually made the insomnia worse after the first day of EMDR. And so I continued to get the training, thought, well, it just must be me. I'm, broken. Of course, this isn't going to work for me, but it'll work for everybody else. And I'm happy to help them. So I did the training, started practicing. I had some successes, but then also as I started practicing EMDR, I noticed that it was difficult to get clients sometimes in directly in the window of tolerance. I had a client who came distressed but couldn't necessarily get distressed enough, and it was a huge issue. It was a sexual assault issue, and so I felt defeated and like I wasn't doing EMDR correctly. She left unhealed, um, and so I had ups and downs with EMDR, but then my neighbor and friend at my
Linda.
office, Linda, came in,
Yeah.
and she and I just kind of chat in the hallway, and she had been sharing her experiences about being really, really stuck and depressed about the loss of her sister. And she came back just looking bright as a 1,000-watt light bulb one day, and couldn't contain her excitement about um, having been cured of that sadness and grief in your group session with Target to Zero. And so,
That is
um,
so great to hear,
yeah,
right? Because I
yeah,
presented with Sherry Todd and Patrick O'Neill at the Florida Mental Health Counselors Conference, right? And we did
hmm
a little trial of Target to Zero, right, with everybody in the audience, and that
hmm
was her experience.
yeah. She looked different. She acted different. It was like the weight came off,
That
and
is so cool to hear the
yeah,
pre and post, right? Because she's
yes,
written up her experience of what that was like, but to hear somebody else say what they saw when
yes,
she was
yeah.
experiencing that grief, that's pretty cool.
Yes, yeah, she was a changed woman. So then she told me she was getting trained in it and she couldn't wait. And I kept on my EMDR journey, and I thought, oh, that's great for you. And then when she started implementing Target to Zero after you had the training with her, she would come out of her office and say things like, my client just said, Linda, you're a witch, and walked out of session because she'd healed her so quickly. One day I saw her in the hallway, and she said, after 45 minutes, her client said, "Well, I don't have anything else to talk about. I'm going to the grocery store," because she had healed her. And uh, as Linda kept giving me these testimonies, I thought, you know what, I don't have anything to lose. I'm going to check this out too. And obviously then signed up for your training. And as I continue um, to use it in lieu of EMDR, Um, you know, that's why I'm back and we're still talking because I just continue to be blown away by the potential um, for healing under target to zero without the risk of dissociation. It's just,
Okay,
um,
so let's talk a little bit about that. So tell me what
mhm,
you're seeing a difference between doing standard EMDR and right
mhm.
having some clients disassociate, and then what you're seeing and what you're able to do with target to zero for folks.
Sure. I mean, to be honest with you, there were times after I got trained in Target to Zero that I tried to continue using standard EMDR, and honestly, I don't use it anymore at all.
Yeah, me neither.
So what I saw as a side-by-side comparison was, a perfect example is a client who came in with a major big T trauma, couldn't function, couldn't, get up, do daily life, and was clearly very distressed, but otherwise a very healthy, active, mentally healthy person. And I couldn't get her in the window, and so we had to forego it altogether. If I took that same client
With
and
standard EMDR.
well, that's what I'm talking about with
Yeah,
standard EMDR. I couldn't. It was not a possibility.
yeah.
Um, and if I took that same scenario, which I have in cases with target to zero, um, that exact same big T trauma could be cleared in, I will boldly say, less than 10 minutes from the moment you start explaining until the time you have, gotten their trauma all the way down to a zero, and they can't either picture it anymore or their minds consolidated it and they're smiling and their body is free of any sensations or tightness or pain. um I mean, heck, a couple weeks ago we did my chronic pain, and I've noticed a really big difference myself in my headaches and my neck tightness, and um so I guess the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Well, thank you for sharing your experience.
Absolutely. My
I appreciate
pleasure.
it.